of medicine that trains your body to fight any foreign agents.
Plants are helpful for the ecosystem.
It's an electronic device for storing and processing data.
The nervous system is all the collection of nerves in your body.
Yeast is a eukaryote.
Welcome to Spectacular Science, where it's all about science, with your host, Akshay.
Hey listeners, welcome back to this episode of Spectacular Science. I'm your host, Akshay. Let's go to Mars, but where will we get the oxygen to breathe? And I really want to go to Mars, actually. I have my own rocket and everything. But I need to get some oxygen to breathe, because I need some oxygen, and my rocket also needs oxygen. So how am I supposed to get that oxygen? Well, actually, right now on Mars, there's a rover called the Perseverance Rover, or the Mars 2020 mission. And in that rover, in the belly of that rover, is a small little machine that actually makes oxygen on Mars. It's called MOXIE, or the Mars Oxygen ISRU Experiment. How does MOXIE work to produce oxygen on Mars? And what is it? Well, in this episode, I'm speaking with Mr. Shravan Hariharan. He is a graduate student at MIT and works on this mission. Time to go to his giant lab. It has so much cool technology in it. Good thing it's right across the street. Okay, I'll meet you there. Oh, alright, I'm here. It was just a short walk. Oh, and there's Mr. Hariharan. Let me go say hi. Oh, hi, Mr. Hariharan. It's so great to see you today.
It's nice to see you as well. Welcome to my lab.
All right. Wow, this is a pretty cool place here.
Well, we don't get visitors too often, so I'm happy to show you around.
So can you please introduce yourself to the listeners?
Definitely. My name is Shravan Hariharan. Right now, I'm a graduate student at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, working on a very exciting project called MOXIE that I'll tell you about a bit later. I grew up in Edison, New Jersey, and I went to Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia for my undergrad. And there I learned that I love space. I love everything to do with space, reading about it, learning about it, and especially working on projects that help humans explore space and make it easier and cheaper for all of us to eventually get to go to space one day. So I've worked all over the space industry at places like NASA and even smaller private organizations like Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos's company. But right now here at MIT, I'm doing my master's degree. I just have a few months left until I leave to join the workforce full-time, and I am learning as much as I can while I'm here.
Wow, that's really interesting. So how'd you get interested in science?
Well, I think as long as I can remember, I've always been curious. I've always asked as many questions as I possibly can, and my favorite questions were how and why. Just trying to learn as much as I can about how the world works, because there's so much going on around us in our technology and even in terms of the natural things we see every day. And I just wanted to know why. And then I learned that science is the study of the why and the how. It helps us understand the world around us. And for me, that just made sense. I feel at home when I'm searching for those answers for the questions that I kept asking everyone around me. And so far, it seems like a great fit.
Wow, that's really cool. That's how I got interested in science too, and I am interested in science. It's the how and the why. So what is MOXIE?
MOXIE is this little box sitting on Mars right now that is actually making oxygen on Mars. MOXIE is a part of the Mars 2020 mission, which is a mission that sent this rover named Perseverance to the surface of Mars just last year. And it has so many interesting science experiments, and the rover itself is searching for signs of past life on Mars. MOXIE is a little project that got to tag along for the ride and is sitting inside of the belly of the rover that is making oxygen from the Mars atmosphere. As we know that oxygen is very important for humans and for human space exploration. I'll talk a little bit more about that down the road in detail. But it's this box the size of a toaster oven that is really going to change how we explore our universe.
That's amazing. So how does MOXIE work?
Well, I sometimes have some trouble understanding how MOXIE works myself, but here's how I try to understand it. Right now, here on Earth, we breathe air that has two main gases in it, nitrogen and oxygen, which we need to breathe. On Mars, though, we don't really get that much oxygen. Most of the Mars atmosphere is actually made up of this gas called carbon dioxide, which is what we as humans actually breathe out each time we breathe. Now, the thing with carbon dioxide is it isn't very nice to breathe, but inside of the molecules, which are the pieces of the gas, there are these things called atoms. And there are these two oxygen atoms inside of this carbon dioxide. What MOXIE does is it takes this carbon dioxide and it splits it so that we can take that oxygen that's locked in there and convert it to the oxygen gas we know and we love so much. So basically how MOXIE works is it takes in the Mars atmosphere, it heats it up to really hot temperatures, and then it uses electricity to split the carbon dioxide and get oxygen out of it. So that way we get 100% pure oxygen, and that is something that we really need if we're going to be exploring and living on Mars in the future.
Wow, that's so cool. So many different parts that work together, and it's just splitting carbon dioxide right there, and it's making oxygen.
Exactly. It works very well, and I'm very glad to have the opportunity to work on something like this and learn so much about it. Each day I work on MOXIE, I learn so much more, and a lot of that comes from asking those how and why questions to the older scientists I work with.
Wow. So why is MOXIE so important for future space exploration?
That is a great question. So when you take MOXIE right now, it's just this small toaster-sized experiment that can only make enough oxygen for a small dog to breathe. It really is more so, it proves that we can do it, but it doesn't make enough oxygen for the future. Now, when we send humans to Mars, we need oxygen for a few reasons. If you think about it, you might think breathing is something we definitely need oxygen for. But there's another really important reason that we need oxygen on Mars. It's because if we send humans to Mars, we need to have a way to bring them back. And the rockets that bring humans back from Mars need oxygen in order to power their engines. If you don't have any oxygen, that rocket isn't going to go anywhere. So actually, most of the oxygen that we would need on a planet like Mars would go into that rocket with only a small amount needed for people to breathe. The other option is we could bring that oxygen here with us from Earth, but that's heavy and expensive. If we can make it there on Mars itself, we get to save all of the hassle. Think about it this way. Would you rather bring an empty suitcase with you and only carry it with the weight one way when you need it? Or would you lug around all of this extra weight everywhere you go on your travels and need to worry about carrying that? And the baggage fees as well. Here, we only make it a one-way trip for that oxygen.
Yeah, I would definitely prefer not having to basically carry that entire thing around. It would be a big hassle, and it would just make me tired, so I couldn't even enjoy my trip.
Exactly, and that's how we think about Mars as well.
Wow, that's really interesting. Because a rocket needs more oxygen than humans, which is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, when you think about it, if we take a small group of maybe 6 people going to Mars, the rocket would actually need more than 20 times the amount of oxygen than these humans to breathe. That rocket really just likes to chug this oxygen and use it, but that's what gets us our really powerful engines that are strong enough to bring the rocket back. So unless we want to send our humans to Mars and only on a one-way trip, we need that oxygen there on Mars.
Wow, that's so cool. So what advice do you have for kids like me who are interested in science?
Well, you are doing the right thing by talking to as many people as you can and asking these kinds of questions. I have met many scientists, and all of them love to talk about the work they do and why it's important, because that's what science is. It answers important questions about the world around us. I think that for other kids who are interested in science, ask questions. There is no such thing as a bad question. If somebody doesn't have the answer to your question, or if that answer doesn't exist yet, that gives you one more thing to think about and change the world. But also, don't just be focused on really complicated science questions from the beginning. It starts close to home. Go outside, play some sports with your friends, and think about how everything works around you. And that's how the brains of scientists develop. Just look at the world with open eyes. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and don't take no for an answer. Just keep hounding along until you get the answers you need. And that way you'll find where you can eventually make those changes yourself.
Wow, that's some really great advice. A good example is with MOXIE itself, because if you were to go back 100 years, no one even know what Mars was and how could we get there. But right now, we see that they've been wondering about it, and people like you and your entire team have been making this revolutionary technology go to Mars and actually make oxygen. And there's so much potential for it in the future.
Exactly. And with our team, it's such a big team with people from all over the world working together. And all of those people were asking those same questions. So we founded a whole community, a family of scientists who all want to work together to have those questions. So I guess another piece of advice I have is try to go out and meet other people who are asking these same questions. Talk to your friends about it, because the more people you have working on complicated problems together, the higher chance you have at actually solving them. And that's what we try to do here with MOXIE.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I really enjoyed it. I learned so much about MOXIE and just Mars exploration.
You are very welcome. Thank you so much for paying my lab a visit. We love having really interested young visitors like you, and we're always, always happy.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Can't wait to get to space already. I've been trying so many times and I need to get to Mars. I guess it's time to get all that oxygen and power up my rocket because I'm going to Mars.
Have a safe flight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Spectacular Science. Spectacular Science produced and hosted by me, Akshay J. Raman. Our theme song is by Chayan Ramachandran. Special thanks to Mr. Hariharan for accepting this interview invite. I had so much fun during this interview and I learned so much. Also, special thanks to Varun Ramachandran. Please visit my podcast website, spectacularsci.com, to find interactive activities, blog posts, articles, and all of our episodes. You can also find the link to sign up for the Spectacular Science membership, where you get lots of bonus content to keep you thinking about science. My favorite of those is the fact of the day, when you get a fun science fact every day. Sign up at spectacularsci.com/membership. Please follow or subscribe to this show on any podcasting platform or wherever you're listening right now. It really encourages me when you subscribe, and it means a lot. Thank you so much. I always love hearing from my listeners about science, and I just love interacting with my listeners. So please contact me at spectacularsci.com/contact or email me using the link posted on the page. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see you on the next episode of Spectacular Science next week. Keep thinking about science.